Hello class, it's me again. This is the second part of finishing this first Excel-based assignment. So we'll be dealing with just questions 4 or 5 here real quick. So in this particular question, it's asking you to make like some frequency distributions and some subsequent charts and graphs. And there are a lot of nuances with these particular questions, particularly with what is being asked, how to present it, and what version of Excel you have. So I'll get to that. So again, we see our data here. It's the number of caramel popcorn cans sold. And again, whenever you see data set up like this, you should say, oh, that's not good. It should be a single column with a column heading. But we'll deal with it for now for this particular part of the assignment. So it's asking you to calculate the min, and it gives you the function syntax. So again, we have our little function box in here, so we just can type min right in and select the data to get that value. Again, and just repeat that for max. Very easy. In fact, there's little things you can do in Excel. Let's say I got rid of that and put the equal sign in. I wanted that max. Before I even finish, there it is. I can click on this function box and it's asking me for my numbers, and there it is. I just select it, I hit enter, and there's my max. And again, you can do that for any function that's built into Excel. It's asking you to subtract the max and the min. Again, so it's 200 minus 100, and you can just use that using the cell references. You don't need to actually type in the numbers 200, 100. It's asking for the size of the bin. That's just this number 100 divided by 5. And now here's the thing. It's asking you to create the bins. The bins in Excel, it's Excel language for ranges of continuously scaled data. So what does that mean? We have this number of popcorn cans sold, and this number can range anywhere from 0 to infinity. In this particular case, it ranges from 100 to 200. We want to count on different categorical ranges, if you will, to get a pretty graph, more or less. And that graph is going to be called a histogram. So to get these ranges, you just take them in, you add the first bin width, you get 120, add 20 again, you get 140, add 20 again, you get 160. But you want to know how many of these sales, these cans sold, are within these ranges. And again, why I really don't like this method is because you don't actually see the range. You see the end part of the range. So it's really 0 or 100 to 120, 121 to 140, 141 to 160, and how many of those are within those ranges. And you can do that using this frequency syntax. Now, if this all goes right, this is how you do it. So let me delete this. I don't have my bin range frequencies anymore, but I'm going to use this frequency syntax. There it is. I can double click it to get it. It's asking me for my data array and my bins array. So my data array is this data up here. All right, and I'm going to go up to this frequency box, and again, the frequency syntax formula shows up here. I'm going to put a comma in, space. Now it's asking me to turn bold for the bins array. So I know it's this right here. Oh, let me back up. You always have to have an extra row down here. It's an Excel thing. And you have to select all 6 of these before you put in that frequency formula. So again, so remember, highlight all 6 rows here within this column. Go up here, put in your frequency, and it's asking for the data. And we're going to put a comma in, a space. It's asking for our bins array, which is our bin range here. We're going to put it in our parentheses, and that's another point of Excel here. If you start with a parentheses, you always have to end with a parentheses. And I'm not going to hit return. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click Control, Shift, Enter. And there they are. Voila. Okay, so again, select. Make sure you select this whole set of rows, put in your formula, and make sure you type before you hit enter, Control, Shift, Enter, and it should fill this whole set of bin ranges for you. Okay, now with this information, you can build a histogram. Now, Here's what I suggest. This is the easiest way to do this. It doesn't matter what version of Excel you have. You can, again, correctly put all your data, because we only have a single column of data, put it into one column, put in your heading, and literally that's what I did is I copy and pasted each of these into this, okay, single column. Now from here, this is really cool. If you have Excel 2016, if I click on Insert, and see this little blue graph up here? It says insert statistics chart. If I just click on that, look, histogram pops up. I just click it. Boom. Done. There's my histogram. Now the question was asking, can you put in a bin range of 20? And you'll see here, it automatically did a bin range of 30. So 100 to 130, 130, 160. If I just double click on those, I can change the bin width here to 20, hit enter. Ta-da! And what's cool here, watch this. So now this is the funky part with 2013 and 2016 of Excel. I can format, sorry, not the chart style. I can add in the data labels. Look, there's my 14, 7, 10, 7, 12. It's slightly different than the frequencies I have here. Although, no, it came out identical. Good. Because the ranges are identical. Great. So, but you'll see when we use the pivot table method, it comes up off by 1, but it's not a big deal. And then here, we just need to make sure we label our chart title. We can add in our axis titles on the left. This is the Y, and this is X. And that's it. Your histogram is done. Now, the 2013, 2010, 2007 method is very similar. If I do insert, I can do either a pivot table or a pivot chart and pivot table. I'm going to go right to a pivot chart, okay, and saying select the data. So I've got my data selected here. I'm going to put it in a new worksheet. I'm going to click OK. Then you're going to say, whoa, what is this? So one thing you should know about Excel, there's pivot tables and there's pivot charts, but you can have a pivot table stand by itself, but you can't. Every pivot chart is based on a pivot table. And whenever you have a pivot table, it gives you this menu on the right. So I have only one variable worth of information. If I had more selected, all my variables would be listed here. Look what happened. It automatically created my bin ranges. And let me tell you why. A, I had already done it. But B, I need my actual values. So I'm going to drag them down to the values here. And I want to make sure this is a count. Okay. Under value field settings, count. And you see my ranges here, and automatically created them. So you can get these bin ranges, okay, in a pivot table under the grouping. So up here in the corner you'll say group. If I click group, it's asking for my start and ending. It already knows it because Excel's awesome. And then by 20, this is your bin range. So I already know that it's 20, it's in there. What if I could change this to 30 if I wanted to, and it'll change my ranges. So if I click this again, I can put this back to 20, and you'll click OK. And then you'll see here it's a little different because it's not saying 100 to 120, because it's actually counting 100, okay, as up to and 20 points, so it's actually 100 to 119. It's not looking in between. Not a big deal. So you'll see these counts are a little off, though I mentioned that earlier. Not a big deal. And one other thing you want to do, why this is a good method, is to know that a histogram has fat bars. You saw on the last one that we made it, the bars are fat. So if you just double click these and change this gap width to 0 and hit enter, now you actually have a full histogram, and you can add in your data labels, your axes titles, bar titles, and you are good to go. Now again, why I like these two methods, depending on what version you have, is this is labeled down here. I know that there's 13 cases or cans sold between 100 and 119. If I were to use what you were given here and graph based on this, I'm only going to get this n value, and that doesn't tell me much, because there's a third method for creating a histogram, and that's using the data analysis toolback. And if I scroll down here, it says histogram. I click OK. It says the input range. That's my data here. my bin range, which are my bins here that I had to manually calculate. I don't have any labels, and you have to check this box for chart output, and you click OK, and then you get your histogram. And again, look, it's kind of weird here. Excel is creating a histogram, and guess what? The bars aren't fat. So you still have to go in and make these bars fat by changing the gap width. Okay. So I don't recommend the data analysis toolback for the histogram. I don't recommend actually doing this method at all by manually calculating the bins and the frequencies. A, it's a lot more work. B, you don't get all this pretty labeled output on your bars. So if you got 2016 Mac or Windows, you got the simple one-click, awesome. If you don't, if you have 2007, 10, or 2013, do use the pivot table chart and pivot chart method, and you'll be good as gold. Now the assignment's also asking for a bar chart. You don't need to do it because you're basically going to be graphing the same exact information, but if you were, you could go back. Let me find the data. This data here, and just do an insert. I'm sorry. You could graph this data here, insert, and technically a bar chart. You can click like this. Any one of these will give you a bar chart, but it's the same exact information. So I really don't care. The last question is, again, it wants a pie chart. Again, see how easy that was? So insert, boom, you get your pie chart. Everything's labeled here. Make sure you put in your totals. These little things here, these menus, you can hide these if you want, and you can make this prettier if you want. I really don't care. As long as you have things labeled, you're good to go. So that's it. Questions 4. You have a variety of choices to calculate your frequencies depending on your version of Excel. You don't have to do the bar chart because it's the same information, and make sure you do the pie chart and it's labeled. So that is it. Any questions, just ask.